Welcome to the Guns and Noses podcast. My name's Helen Taylor and I am the owner of Guns and Noses, and I own 3 Labradors. We're here to talk about real moments, real lives, and the wins, the wobblers, and the occasional up yours moments. We're talking about those dogs with enthusiasm and us humans who are trying to keep up. So why don't you sit back, grab a brew, slow down, and listen in. Hello and welcome back to another podcast from Guns and Noses. This is the podcast for dogs with enthusiasm and the humans trying to keep up. The type of dogs that I see every single day and try and help their owners to understand and rebalance their dogs. Today we're going to talk about something that sounds really technical, but changes absolutely everything once you understand it. And it's actually something that I speak about quite regularly when I'm doing classes and one-to-ones with my clients. And that subject topic is proprioception. Now, it's not a cue, it's not a command, it's not something you shout across a field. It's your dog's awareness of where their body is in space. And for enthusiastic high-drive dogs that are slightly chaotic, it might actually be the missing piece. So what is proprioception? Well, it's basically body awareness. It's what allows your dog to know where their back feet are, step over something without tripping, slow their body when they approach you, and control their movement rather than just exploding into it. If you've ever had a dog that crashes into your legs on recall, I certainly have, and actually one of mine does that quite regularly. They skid past their placeboard when you're doing a centre placeboard. They knock over a child in excitement or slam into doors like they haven't seen them. Or they might even, as puppies, look like Bambi on ice. Now, it's not always disobedience, and this is where I want to go with this, because sometimes it's just a body that moves faster than the brain can organise that movement, or they don't have the ability to understand where their body is in space and time. I always talk a lot about Ferrari dogs because they are the type of dogs that I deal with most of the time. They are the high drive, big energy, full throttle dogs. But here's one thing. You can have the most powerful engine in the world, but if the steering is poor and the brakes are weak, it's chaos. Proprioception is your dog's steering. It's its brakes and it's coordination. And without it, all that enthusiasm has nowhere controlled to go. So if we think about a toddler who gets walking for the first time and they're a bit unbalanced and they just run really quickly and aim towards something, but then over time their balance gets better, their coordination gets better, their ability to understand spaces gets better. That is what we are talking about, proprioception. Now, the nervous system, and here's where it gets really interesting. When we work on slow, controlled body movements, we are activating focus. We're encouraging regulation, supporting the parasympathetic nervous system. And if you remember, the parasympathetic nervous system is the rest and digest, the slow, the steady, the being observant but not reactive system. It builds slow movement and calm brains. Fast repetition builds stamina. And if we only ever rehearse speed, chasing balls, high-speed retrieves, constant motion, we build fitter chaos, which might look impressive, but doesn't always feel good to live with. So here's where I'm going to give you an example. And I had a young Labrador come to class who could fly to a placeboard, absolutely whiz off to a placeboard. It was impressive. It was really fast, it was driven, it was powerful, but she couldn't stop without skidding. She couldn't hold still once she got there. Her lead walking was a bit frantic, and there was just like a lot of busyness going on. And you might think, well, that's just a busy brain wanting to be going, living in the future, just kind of pushing her handler on and on. But actually, when we slowed her down, we realized that her balance wasn't very good, that she was actually quite unsteady on her feet in slow behaviors. So instead of asking for more control verbally, we slowed everything right down. We worked on stepping slowly over poles, backing up in straight lines, holding front feet platform position. Now, that's just where you put two front feet on a platform and the back feet are on the ground. Pausing before movement. And within a few weeks, her steadiness improved everywhere. Not because we corrected her, but because her body finally felt organized. So there's some signs that your dog might need more body awareness work. You might notice rear end swings wide on turns, so that it's like really over exaggerated movement. They might have difficulty holding a stand or a sit without wobbling about or tapping their feet or just seeming really busy. They might jump into people. So they might, you ask them to do a recall, and instead of just doing a recall and stopping in front of you, they like slam into your legs or they jump at the last moment. Again, these are all things of proprioception. It's understanding the space in front of them. They might struggle with stairs. They might always be moving fast and rarely move slow. And again, that's that real feeling of imbalance. Sometimes what looks like over arousal is actually a dog who doesn't feel grounded. Now, here's a bit of a human comparison for you, and I like to think of it in relation to driving cars. So, you pass your test, and you might start in a small car like a Corsa or a Fiesta, and you learn over time the space that you have to get in. So when you park in or get through, when you're trying to get through, maybe past a parked car and then there's another car coming towards you. And you start to understand your space within that environment. So you either hesitate and slow down, or you maybe speed up and get past, but the distance between you and the parked car and you and the car traveling towards you. You also know like how quickly you need to put the brakes on. And then what you do is you go and buy a bigger car. So you've been driving for a bit of time, and then all of a sudden you think to yourself, oh, I'd like a new car. So you maybe go and get something slightly bigger. And for a few days, maybe a couple of weeks, you may hesitate more because you don't know its stopping capabilities. You don't know its size. So getting into a parking space or, again, getting past a parked car. And that is your way of learning about the size of your vehicle. Well, this is the same for dogs. Proprioception is all about understanding the distance in front of them that they have to stop, the distance around them that they need to get through things, and how they can control speed to stay up on four paws. So how do we check if our dogs have got good proprioception and if they understand what space and the space around them they have to be able to move and understand and navigate within that space? It's also to do with balance. Now, you might be able to do some slow pole work. So that's where you put some poles out on the ground and you ask your dog to walk over them, and they might clip them with their toes. What we want the dog to do is really pick their feet up and understand the distance they've got to lift their legs up to get over that pole. You might see it when they go through doorways. They trip over the threshold of the doorway. You might get them to back up beside you. So you take a treat on the end of their nose and you ask them to walk backwards. Do they do it with ease, or are they quite gangly? Do they trip over their own feet, or do they just simply sit down and not want to move? If you put your dog's front feet up onto a small platform, can they do it, or do they again trip over it as they go to get on that platform? You might also ask them to go to a placeboard from a distance and ask them to go and sit on it. Can they go and sit on it? Or again, do they trip over it as they get there? Or do they wiggle around when they get there? And then we might ask them to walk on different surfaces. So going from gravel to grass to maybe like a sheet of tarpaulin, back into the kitchen where it might be slippy floors or carpeted floors. But we're looking at, can our dogs change how they are on different surfaces without looking clumsy, clunky, slipping, tripping, falling over? Now, if it's quite boring and it's quite steady, you're probably doing it right and your dog is probably getting it right. If it's really fast and speedy and a little bit out of control, then it could be that your dog needs a little bit more help. And what I want to kind of pop into now is, why does this matter for reactivity and arousal? And for dogs who are reactive or highly excitable or easily overwhelmed, proprioception can be really powerful. Because we're not demanding behavior, we're helping their body regulate first. When the body feels steady, the brain has space to think. And when the brain can think, behavior improves. Now, here's a reflection question. I want you to ask yourself, is my dog struggling with behavior or are they struggling with body awareness? And how could I build steering, not just acceleration? So what I want you to look at this week when you're working with your dogs, when you're out walking, is, do they pick their feet up? Do they bump into things? Do they go really super fast all the time and they can't slow it down? Are they constantly living in the future because they just need to get through situations because actually they can't understand the space that they have around them? And they're all really important questions. You might see this a lot in multiple households. So where there's multiple dogs in a household and they're maybe barging past each other for being at the front when they're on a walk or getting through a door first. And if they constantly bump into the doors or they trip over the door jamb, is your dog struggling with proprioception, the awareness of body, or are they actually misbehaving? So if this episode has made you look at your dog a little differently, I'd love you to share it with a fellow enthusiastic dog owner. And if you'd like more practical, steady training conversations like this, come and find me over at Guns and Noses. I'm on Facebook and Instagram. Because we don't just train cues, we build balance and we build confidence. See you next time.
Thank you for spending this time with me. If today's episode helped you slow down, feel seen, or think a little differently about your dog, then it's done its job. Remember, progress isn't about perfection, it's about observation and reflection. You're not behind, you're not failing, and you're definitely not alone. Until next time, keep training kindly and try to keep up.